Hi, I'm Suze Montgomery, and you just joined us with Manja. I'm not sure Manja is going to be the name of the show, but I'm kind of hoping it will. When I was a kid, my grandmother had Sunday dinners, and that was command performance. And the only reason you didn't show up is if you were dying somewhere in a gutter and nobody knew you were there. But other than that, you had to be at the family table. And there was anywhere from 12 to 24, sometimes up to 30 people there. And she would really roll it out. I mean, she started in the morning and she cooked until she was done. We ate probably about 3 o'clock. Lots of wine. You got little shot glasses of half water and half wine when you were about 5 years old until you were about 12. And then you graduated to a full shot glass of wine, which was my grandfather that made it in the basement, or the cellar as we called it back in Chicago. And it was a red, kind of a rot gut wine. When I look back at it, it was probably really nasty because I have a little bit more refined palate now. But he made it, and that's the only thing we could get that he made in the cellar. And in fact, he made them in these large cement sarcophagi, which during the winter, his koi, or his large goldfish, lived in those. So we were drinking fish wine. I don't know what you want to call it. Bacala, which is fish. So anyway, when I was a kid, we always had to be at the table. And she called us to the table by saying manja, which means to eat in Italian. And in my kitchen here, it is an Italian kitchen, obviously. And that's it's probably one of the least foods that I cook. I cook all different cuisines, but probably not a lot of Italian food, and probably very little pasta. Most Italians don't eat a lot of pasta. They eat vegetables and fish and a little bit of protein like meats, mostly salads and veggies. But today we're going to be doing, the first one we start with is something that's a pantry ready staple that you probably have in your cabinet. And oh, by the way, the recipes are at the end of the show. I'm not going to teach you how to cook. You know how to cook. I'm sure you know how to cook. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this outside of the yucks. So it's more anecdotal information, educational in the way of maybe history, a little geography, chemistry for sure, because that's my background. So starting today with a pantry staple of, if you are locked down, beans. We'll do a whole show on beans. This one today is on garbanzo beans, and if you didn't watch a previous show, you really need to watch it. It's all about garbanzo beans. Being in Italian, we called them chichi beans. Now, if you look at a garbanzo bean, a raw garbanzo bean is not totally round. It's got a little point at the end. Looks like a woman's small breast. Now, none of the women in my family have small breasts. They all have large breasts. In fact, after a certain age, they become a belt. They're there for a function. But garbanzo beans, or chichi beans, is the basis of the hummus that I have made for you today. Now, this hummus is not your typical garden variety hummus that you can buy at Trader Joe's or an import store. This one is a little different. This is a whipped hummus. It's lighter than most. And the ingredients are, of course, garlic. And you can see by here, the bowl I put here, the garlic cloves that are roasted. It's a garlic confit. I will teach you how to make this. Anybody can make this. Trust me. If I can make it, you can make it. And it's a whipped hummus. So you take, let's start with the recipe. So a can of beans, empty them out, rinse off all the garbage that they are packed in from the store, and you put them in a pot with about a teaspoon of baking soda. What happens with that is they tenderize and they become lighter. So you kind of boil them for about 5 minutes. And if the skins float to the surface, no big deal, because you're going to put this in a food processor and whip it along with maybe a little bit of cumin, maybe a little bit more olive oil and some baking soda, maybe some other ingredients. Make it your own. You don't have to follow my recipe. Be inventive. What flavors do you like? Do you like oregano? Do you like a little basil? Throw it in there. There's no wrong hummus to make. So I made this hummus today out of this garbanzo bean can, and here's the trick. So if you're going to make it this, because it really doesn't have a flavor, just a garbanzo bean, they're flat. They're bland. I made pita chips. Now these are not your typical pita chips you buy in a package. This is what is so easy about these. So you go to the store, you buy pita bread in a package like this. There's what, maybe 8 in here. Cut them in half again, and half again. And you throw them in a big bowl with olive oil, some chopped garlic, and here's something that makes them really unusual. You're going to put in za'atar. Now za'atar is Palestinian. Now if you have an ethnic market that sells different kinds of ingredients and spices like this, hit it. We have a couple of ethnic markets in Ventura, and I use za'atar on, well, let's read the ingredients. I'll tell you what's in here. Thyme leaves, roasted sesame, roasted wheat, salt, sumac, and corn oil. Talking about sumac, here's another thing that I put in with these pita chips. This is sumac. It's kind of a lemony flavor. See, it's kind of like a red powdery type of substance. They grow on trees. Sumac is a tree. You can actually put it in your yard, and they grow in little tart berries. They taste like lemon, like I said. So I mixed these two things together and a couple of grinds of some really good red pepper flakes. Tossed them with the olive oil and the garlic through the big bowl, put them in the oven, and baked them. So these, they take on almost a crunchy but soft taste. They're not going to be totally crunchy. It's all about mouthfeel. So the mouthfeel is basically like how your palate tastes fat. So that would be the olive oil in it, but also what are you tasting? That umami taste, which is undefinable. Japanese word that means you really don't know what it is, but you know you'll like it. So I throw it in the pan, throw it in the oven, bake these little babies up. They have a nice color, and I mean you could put even parsley, not parsley, but maybe paprika to give them more of a color. And if you want to give them even a better taste, try putting in maybe a smoked paprika as well. I make my own homemade barbecue potato chips using smoked paprika. Another show coming up. So here you have hummus and homemade chips. Now this whole operation will take you less than 45 minutes to put together. And you gotta admit, it looks pretty doggone good. And people will be going, wow, where'd you get the chips? And how'd you make those? So simple. It's already pantry stuff you've got available. So, give it a whirl. Come back. We'll see you soon.